Well, hey, Northridge family and guests, thank you so much for joining me for Thursday Live. And I have to tell you, this week it's been kind of a hard wait to get to Thursday Live because I am so excited to touch base with you since our first open campus, open building weekend this last weekend. And it was just I have to tell you, it was just a highlight for me to have people there in our auditorium in Plymouth, and then to know that many of you were gathered at Grosse Ile and Brighton as well. And so it's just exciting. And we've had a bunch of people say, send questions, "You're open, question mark? We're open, question mark?" And the answer is yes. And Northridge Church has been open forever. We were open as a ministry, waking the world up to Jesus, showing his love, telling his truth, involving people. We were open, it's just that our buildings were closed. But now not only are we open as a church, but our buildings are open. And we want you to know we're taking great caution. We're following the CDC guidelines. We're really trying to keep people safe. In fact, thank you for all of you who gathered in person with us this last weekend and said, "Man, I felt safe. It was well organized. It was never a threat." And sometimes people watching online don't know, the good science is that if you're socially distant 6 feet away, that's one way to protect yourself, and the other is with a mask. And so when people aren't socially distanced as they're getting to their seats, they're wearing a mask at Northridge. But then once they hit their seats and they're socially distanced, then they, as CDC guidelines outline, can get together. So it was fantastic. And my great moment was when I got up to just welcome people and say hey to those of you online and then those in person, and to have the applause and the gathering. It was really cool. And so for those of you who are still gathering with us online, we celebrate you. You're such first-class citizens, such committed part of Northridge Church. We're thrilled that you're gathering together with us and want you to stay just as connected, feel just as connected, know we're praying for and still thinking a lot about how we can most impact you. But it really is an exciting thing to have in-person worship happening as well. And so for all of you who made the choice to do it this first weekend, you early adopters, you people who like to jump in and see how things are going, I hope you had a great time. But here's what I want you to know. It was our first weekend to do in-person worship under this new reality that we're experiencing. I mean, we'd never had a pandemic in-person worship service before, and we had never had to follow strict guidelines from the CDC before and try and keep people safe. And so, and here's what we learned this last weekend. As much as you can plan and theorize and practice and strategize and ideate and rehearse and work through things, you're not going to get it right until you're doing the real thing. It's just the way it is. And so if you are someone who has stepped into an in-person experience with us at Northridge this last weekend, or you've gotten the download from someone who has, I need you to know that as we go forward, it will be nothing like the experience from this last weekend. In fact, those of you who stepped into Northridge Plymouth in particular this last weekend had different experiences. For example, if you came in on Saturday night, then we had some struggles dealing with reality versus our practice. And our team, I want you to know, they worked hard, they did great, they were really trying to work it, and I'm very, very proud of them. But we had some of you waiting outside in these long lines, and some of you waited too long, and then the service is kind of starting up and you're not in, and then we had to flood you in, and we learned so much. Our team then, we did a lot of debriefing, a lot of re-strategizing on Saturday night and Sunday morning, and so by 9:16 on Sunday morning, we had an entirely different strategy for getting you safely in the building and to your seats. that didn't demand outside long lines and didn't demand the wait, and everybody got to their seats, even though we had the same number in attendance. And so, man, our team, they just really made it happen. And then we got better by the 11:16. And so we're learning. So if you had an experience and you went, it wasn't perfect, not sure I want to go back, just know we're consistently changing and growing and getting feedback from people. So it's terrific. And I want you to know that what you experienced last weekend is going to be a totally different experience this weekend. And this is where I just need to celebrate you. And once again, don't forget, those of you who are connecting with us online, we're thinking about you, praying for you, caring about you, and paying attention to you as we continue to do ministry. But hey, in our buildings, we have people stepping in to do in-person worship, and we need to think about them too. And I have to tell you, last weekend's attendance was better than I expected. It was, you showed up, and it was a blast to see. And I want to thank those of you who felt like it was a good choice for you to do that and step into in-person worship. But what you experienced last weekend is going to totally change this weekend. In fact, we're moving away, and I really want you to hear this, we're moving away from the studio audience concept, where if you weren't there in person, and if you just watched us online, you wouldn't have known this, but where the staging is all in the back of the platform, and then much of the communication is done more directly to cameras, and any direct communication to in-person audience, if you were there and you know this, was kind of light and haphazard, and it still felt really distant. You felt like a secondary portion. Well, we're moving away from the studio audience concept to a fully engaged live service for those of you who are in person in the auditorium. And so I'm excited about the dynamic. And can I just tell you, last weekend was probably the hardest weekend for me ever, because I'm not so much a speaker as a communicator, and there many of you were live and in person in the auditorium, and you were off over my left shoulder here as I was speaking into the primary camera. And I know many of you were watching the video and doing all that, but it was like, I felt like I was snubbing you. It was so difficult for me, and I didn't get to engage you as much personally. And so we're going to be moving the set out, and I'm going to be speaking right to you, those of you who are in person, as I also connect to the camera, and those of you who are online. And it's going to be an entirely different experience. And just know this, whatever you experience this coming weekend, you'll experience, new and fresh learnings each weekend subsequently. And spent a great deal of time with the creative team talking about this today, and all of our ministry teams. And so it's going to be great. And so for those of you still watching online, thanks for doing that. And for those of you who are coming in person, just know it's going to keep getting better and better and more personal. And hopefully, here's our goal: to make the experience of in-person worship at all of our campuses get better and better and better each week, so it's worth the effort to be there. And we really do want it to be worth the effort, and we do want you to keep coming and helping us to grow that way. So it's going to be a terrific thing, and I can't wait for this weekend. It's going to be week 2 of Life of a Different Kind, and I look forward to guiding you into the life of Elijah as it relates to this week 2 experience. And I just want to encourage you to connect online or in person. If you're ready to take that step, you're not an at-risk person, and you're not exposed to at-risk people and all that, man, I encourage you, try and take the risk to come in person to one of our campuses. Saturday at 5:16 at Plymouth, and then at all of our campuses, 9:16, 11:16 on Sunday. And we're going to keep you safe, and we'll have a place for you, and you don't have to register. It's going to be a really fun weekend, and I'm excited about it. Now, tonight, and again, if you're just joining us, welcome to Thursday Live, whether you're a part of the Northridge family or a guest, wherever you are in the world, whatever platform you're on, YouTube or Facebook or our website, wherever you're at. Thanks for joining. Thanks for caring enough to do this. If you're joining us after on demand because you couldn't be here during the live experience, thanks for caring enough to catch up with what we're doing. This is really important. I hope you'll share it with other people because we keep getting questions. I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. Are you opening the buildings? And share with people, watch Thursday Live. Brad says it. We're opening the buildings. They were open last week. We're growing, we're learning, we're going forward. So be inviting people. But tonight, I have the privilege of introducing you to a very special guest. I announced it last Thursday Live that I was going to have a special guest, and a lot of people, who is it? And even my son called me, who is it? And so I have the privilege now of sharing who it is. A very special guest, but before I share who it is, I want to share some things about this person. He's actually going to become part of our church family for at least a short while this fall as a spiritual teacher and a spiritual guide for us. He's going to be helping to impact us, and I tell you what, it's going to be a great privilege for us. As the pastor of Northridge, I can say it's going to be a great privilege for him to know that his ministry is having an impact on us, but it's a great thrill for me and for us to have him investing himself with us as well, having done what he's done. But starting on September 27th, mark that down, starting on September 27th, we're going to be kicking off our all-church adult study. And I mean, all of our men's and women's and groups are going to be invested in this. And it's a study called Horizontal Jesus. In fact, I have a copy of the book here, Horizontal Jesus. And it's by Tony Evans, Dr. Tony Evans. And we're going to be going through this as a church family for everyone who's willing to invest and get involved in this. We're going to be going through Horizontal Jesus. Just so you know a little bit about Dr. Evans, he's the senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, and he's been the senior pastor there for over 40 years. And I think I'm in awe of the fact that I'm in my 30th year, coming right up to next month. My 30th anniversary as the pastor of Northridge Church, and a greatest privilege of my life as it relates to ministry privilege. And Roxanne and I can't believe that we've been able to take this journey with such a great family and experience so much only God stuff in our lives. It's unbelievable, but I feel like that's forever. But Tony's been at Oak Cliff for 40 plus years, and he went from 10 people to over 10,000, and so very similar kind of experience. We didn't start as low as 10, but just to see God do great work. So I know exactly how he feels about being invested in his ministry. And he also, though, has a daily radio broadcast on over 1,300 radio outlets, which boggles my mind. And it's called The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, and God's used that in so many people's lives. And he's authored, and this one confuses me. Because I've written a book and written some other things, and he's authored over 100 books. I don't know how. That's crazy. It blows my mind. And one of those books is the one that we'll be studying, Horizontal Jesus. And anyway, here's the deal. For me, I just know that Tony is well equipped to teach and to guide us through this. He's been faithful in his ministry for all these years. God has used him so significantly, and it'll be the first time that his teaching material has been used to shape who we are at Northridge Church. And the special treat I have for you, and I'm really excited about this, is that tonight, he couldn't do it live with me right now, but tonight, just about an hour and a half ago, I got to spend some time with Tony talking about Horizontal Jesus and connecting with him in an interview just for you, Northridge family. And so I really am excited about it. It's the first time I had the privilege of meeting him, and so we get to meet him on the same night. But I have followed him for years, respect him immensely, as I say to him in person. But right now, please enjoy this very fresh, an hour-old interview that I just had with Dr. Tony Evans. we're going to be going through Horizontal Jesus as a church family, Dr. Evans, and I just really would love to hear what was your heartbeat, what was your motivation for kind of structuring that teaching and laying it out.
Well, the fundamental motivation was to show how our vertical relationship with God is very intertwined with our horizontal connectedness with others. Mm-hmm. You look at all the one another's in Scripture, it becomes clear that the Church of Jesus Christ is not just there to hear preaching and teaching, as foundational as that is, but to develop spiritual connectivity. Koinonia, the concept of fellowship in the Scripture, has to do with the mutual sharing of the life of Christ among his family members. Mm-hmm. We wanted to show that as important as our relationship with God directly, individually, and personally is, you cannot fully experience God unless there's horizontal expression. So if God can work to you, but you don't want him to work through you, he'll limit what he does for you.
Absolutely, because it's about a pour through. It's about a go through. It's not about a store up, right?
That's right.
We're not supposed to be creating cisterns, right? We're supposed to be creating rivers. I love what you've done because, the great command, Jesus was asked, what's the greatest command? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But he couldn't stop there. He says, but you need to know the second is, equivalent to it. It flows from it. You can't have one without the other. You have to love your neighbor as yourself. And you're taking the vertical to the horizontal. I absolutely love that.
And unfortunately, what we have today is we have two extremes. We have people who argue for the horizontal without the proper connection to the vertical. And then we have people who passionately talk about the vertical, but who are not consistent in how they express it horizontally. When the two get connected, then we can bring a lot of healing to a very divided, divisive, and broken culture.
I love it. And of course, isn't it just like Jesus to be able to author for us what will actually bring true redemption, healing, both with our relationship with God and relationship with others and with this creation of his. I'd be curious when you started writing Horizontal Church, horizontal Jesus, living out our horizontal faith. Yeah, obviously you're a pastor, you've been a pastor for years, you speak all around the world and on the radio. What was it that you saw that stirred you to need to speak that? And what was it that you hoped would happen in the areas that you had influence over? Like as a pastor of a church, what were you hoping for?
Well, I wanted to see within our congregation a more aggressive caring for each other that wasn't necessarily tied to a formal program.
Right.
You can have formal programs, but this is a lifestyle. So I wanted to encourage a lifestyle, but I wanted people to see the benefit of that lifestyle is getting more of God for yourself. So it's kind of the circle of spiritual life. And so if we could enhance that with ourselves, with our relationships, with our groups, with our ministries, and then express it in society. For example, we have acts of kindness cards that our congregation can pick up at the bookstore. And this is whenever you run across somebody in your daily movement who needs an act of kindness, in whatever way you can express that, do that, give them a card, pray for them. If the opportunity, share the gospel as a way of life. So we're trying to cultivate a lifestyle and not just a programmatic event.
Yeah, it's really, very often we as churches, we have to organize and we have to structure and we have to create systems and all those human things. But the truth is Christianity is supposed to be Jesus in us, his spirit producing it outward, and us not being enacted because the church central is enacting something for us. But we see it on the street, we see it in our neighborhood, we see it in our community, and we're responding like Jesus would, spirit inspired. And I'd be curious, when you started laying that out, did you start seeing those changes initiated in your church?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have people all around the community telling us about the good things that the members are doing for them, and that was good. And then we've got more people got connected with other people in the church intentionally.
Mhm.
When a need was seen or expressed before, or a program was officially attached to it, people would try to reach out and to surround people to help comfort or care or support. So it became a more natural expression of an atmosphere of
Right.
community within the body.
And then I would imagine then your church organizational missional outreaches could then provide and support channels for them to be exercising in unique ways as well. So I imagine it happened neighbor to neighbor, happened within your church. Like we talk about serving Jesus on campus, on our campuses. We talk about serving him in our community, and we talk about serving him around the world. And to see the Spirit of Christ initiating that through truth teaching, like you've done with Horizontal Jesus, is really exciting for me, which is one of the reasons we've chosen this writing and this study. And it's going to be just fun. First of all, it's fun for me to be speaking with you, having followed your ministry for years and having a similar ministry, but never connecting with you. But it's going to be fun for our people to go, wow, I now met the author a little bit. And so that's going to be fun.
I'm excited with you and with your church and your community emphasis, and I'm glad that I could be a small part of what you are doing.
Well, yeah, I think you're going to be a big part. I can't wait to give you some reports on that. But here's a curious question. It's almost like you were a little bit prescient, a little bit ahead of the game as to what our culture was going to need in this moment, because the Horizontal Jesus book was written a while ago, and yet it seems so like off the front pages of our news feeds right now needed. I'm curious, did you see some symptoms and signs in the culture of in the church or outside the church that you saw where we were heading if Christians didn't pull out and start making practical application? I'd be curious about what you saw.
Well, I often say that God won't skip the church house to fix the White House. And there was still too much division, illegitimate division, some things we must divide over, but illegitimate division among Christians, cross-racial lines, cross-cultural lines, cross-gender lines. And unless we get healed, we cannot be good at healing.
That's
okay?
Right.
So I did see that in the culture, but unfortunately, far too much of it in the church. And to the degree that we can heal, then we can become repairers of the breach.
Absolutely. Look, we're supposed to be light in darkness. Jesus never said the world was going to be all light. I mean, he just didn't. We know who the God of our culture is, the author of our age is, and all of that different stuff. It's certainly the king of darkness, but the church is supposed to be light in that darkness. And man, it's too often we're emulating the darkness and the strategies of those lost in darkness in the way we're trying to bring about our values and hopes in the world. And that's why the simple in our ministry, obviously Jesus is the headline, as in yours. Any truly solid Christian church should be. But we get so far away from Jesus that, and in trying to represent him, it messes everything up. So again, your 2-word title, Horizontal Jesus, can we bring Jesus down to this horizontal life that we live inside and outside the church? And I just think our culture in this season, in this moment, can be so impacted by seeing that light lived out by real believers in community. So it's fun to hear that you thought you saw it happening there. And I can't wait to see it happening here. And once again, I can't wait to see the light shining really brilliantly in this season of darkness. It'd be great to turn 2021 into something very different from 2020.
Especially if the church can lead the way. And so we don't want to be on the sidelines. We want to be on the field. And so anybody can sit in the stands and complain. It's a different ballgame when you get on the field and play. Y'all on the field, so I'm playing with you.
Yeah, that's exciting. It really, really is exciting. Well, once again, I know that you've gone through not just all the struggles all of us are going through this year, but you've gone through your own personal struggles and the loss of your wife Lois to cancer. And I just want you to know, we grieve with you. We're going to, as a church family, as we get to know you as an author and a spiritual teacher, be praying for you. And I mean, maybe just a word, how are you doing? And what's God doing in your life these days?
But it's one day at a time. We are, still surrounded by my great family, and so they keep me standing up, and so we're pressing on, and asking God for new strength. He gives strength one day at a time. His mercies are new every day. So we look for that, and we keep going in His name.
Amen.
And ministry wise, we put on our website a 3-point plan to try to address what's happening in the culture, and so we're doing that across the country now. So we're keeping busy, and that helps.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for exercising your faith, not just in the good times, but also in the difficult times, Dr. Evans. And thanks for sharing what you've learned and what you've let out as a pastor and a teacher and a man of God yourself with other churches like ours. And I just really appreciate your time. And once again, thanks for sharing your time with us. And the Northridge family looks forward to getting to know you and being impacted by your teaching. So thanks.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be part of your ministry. God bless you.
Okay, man. Thank you. Well, I consider it just an unbelievable privilege to have had the opportunity to have a conversation with Dr. Evans. And I know you'll be praying for him as he goes through this season after his wife's death. And don't ever forget, just because God gifts some people with amazing spiritual gifts and then allows them to impact, a multitude of people like he has with Dr. Evans, they do that in the midst of real life struggles, experiencing all the seasons, fall, winter, spring, and summer, and too often more winter than we would like to. So it's an amazing thing. Horizontal Jesus is supposed to be lived out not just in good times. In fact, we have to bear out the reality of Jesus in our lives in the good times and the bad. And I just, again, want to thank him so much for sharing with us. And can I just tell you, my goal as a pastor is, it's twofold, really. I want to help what God wants for you to be fulfilled in your life, and what he wants for you, what he's predetermined for you, is to be conformed to the image of his Son. We're supposed to become more and more and more like Jesus, and it's a pastor's job to set that pattern, to try and model that, and then in all of his leadership and teaching to help, support, encourage, promote people, even motivate people into becoming more like Jesus. And then another part of that, another aspect of that, is what Paul said in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. It really kind of tells us why God gifts churches with pastors and teachers. It says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ." It's my role in helping you, to supporting you, to encouraging you to become more like Jesus, to be equipping you to know God's truth and what the reality of Jesus should be in your life, and not just who he is and who he was and what his promises are to you, but what fully knowing him then should result in your life. The whole loving God, and then you're going to love others deal. And here's what I think. I don't think I have to do it alone, and you know that. We have a big team here at Northridge. Many of them are commenting to you right now on your different platforms, and Pete's been helping me with the teaching aspects here. But it's not just people within the confines of our local church. Dr. Tony Evans can help me fulfill what God has called me to Northridge to do in helping you to become more like Jesus. And I just believe Horizontal Jesus really can help us to become more like Jesus in our individual walks as Christians, in our church context. We can become more mature, as Ephesians 4 talks about. We can, through understanding what it looks like to bring our vertical relationship with Jesus into the horizontal reality of our lives, we can attain the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. And so I want to encourage you not to see this as some, extra credit thing, some, escape thing. We wouldn't be bringing Horizontal Jesus in and encouraging a whole church adult study and asking our men's and women's and groups to be engaging this if we didn't think it was going to be helpful in you becoming everything Jesus wants you to become and experiencing in him everything he wants you to experience. And so please don't miss this opportunity. I want to encourage you. Just all you have to do is go to northridgechurch.com/fall study. northridgechurch.com/fall study. And you can register for that. Don't miss this chance to grow. Don't miss this chance to understand. Don't miss this chance to experience someone like Dr. Evans' ministry impact in your life. I guarantee you won't regret it if you do it, okay? And what I want to do is, before I end, I want to pray with you, okay? And if you would pray with me, I'd really appreciate it, and then we'll be able to say goodbye, okay? Father in heaven, I thank you for Thursday Live, for this opportunity for us to connect midweek, to encourage one another, affirm one another, stir each other up to love and good works, to just be lifted up, to have a little light shined into our day, our night. And before I pray for the Northridge family and those engaged here, I just want to pray for Dr. Tony Evans. Thank you for his willingness to connect with us, to encourage us, to share his ideas behind what brought Horizontal Jesus to the surface for him and what it's done in his ministry. But God, more than that, thanks for inspiring and encouraging him and shaping him to author these ideas and to teach on these ideas in a way that can impact us. But we just pray for him personally right now in this season of grieving and loss as he continues to do ministry and follow you, but we know he's hurting. We just ask that you would give him grace, encouragement, and lift him up, and we'll thank you for it. And God, I pray that in our context also we have people who are hurting and grieving and experiencing loss and related to so many different things. And I just pray that the one thing they won't lose is faith. God, I just really pray that in times of loss, we won't lose our faith, but by keeping our faith and growing in our faith and investing in our faith, we'll be able to overcome the loss in ways that honor and glorify you and help us to keep experiencing your promises in our life. So touch each person who's in need of that right now, who's experiencing Thursday Live. And God, I pray for Northridge Church as we go forward. We're trying to honor you. We're trying to fulfill the mission you gave us. We're trying to keep people safe as we inspire them to grow. We're trying to meet the needs of people wherever they're at. So for those who are needing to choose online, we're trying to go there. But for those who are making the effort to come in person to worship you, we're trying to shape the experience to be safe, but also to be inspiring and motivating and encouraging and worth the effort. And just give us wisdom and help us and really anoint us to wake the world up to Jesus during this season. And I'll thank you for it. And we just want to be people in this time who find our joy in you, not in the circumstances of our lives, who find our peace in you and not the circumstances of our life, who because of your love for us can endure unbelievably uncertain and insecure times. Because of your love, we're not insecure. And we thank you for it. Help us to stand upon the foundation during even this season and these times of storm. And though we feel the storm, don't let us be shaken. And we'll thank you for it, God. And we want to live for your honor and your glory and your praise. In Jesus' name, Amen. All right, well, I really appreciate you connecting with me this Thursday live, and don't forget about this weekend. Be praying for it. Hope you can show up at one of our campuses if you're in a place to make a choice like that. If not, keep showing up online, and we'll keep showing up to minister to you there too as well, okay? And next week, Lord willing, I can't wait to see you at Thursday live as well. Until then, everybody, I appreciate you. I love you. I'm praying for you. I hope that you'll be praying for me. We'll see you soon. Have a great night.